On units, we have shots fired in the vehicle in question.
Hello, welcome to the Nomad channel. So today I want to start off with a common question that I get a lot. So if this is the first time you've watched any of my videos or read my blog or anything, I currently work as a police officer, and I get a lot of questions from people saying, what kind of gun should I get for home defense? What kind of gun should I have for concealed carry? And so, it seems like a lot of times I'm just always getting these questions. And so I did a blog post on this, and I also talk about it. There's a chapter in a book I wrote, A Police Officer's Guide to Concealed Carry. I'll put the link to that. You can get a free download to that just in the comment section below. But I kind of wanted to just have more of a discussion on it to kind of answer that question and also give you some kind of background, I guess, of where I'm coming from in that answer. So before we get into that, I want to talk to you. I'm going to show you what I carry off duty for concealed carry for personal defense. And it's also my backup gun when I'm on duty. And that is a Glock 26. And just so you know, if you're concerned, these guns, I've already checked them. Everything I'm going to show you today is safe. So this is the Glock 26 that I use for my, as you'd say, concealed carry gun. A few modifications to it. It's a Gen 4 Glock 26. I have the XS F8 night sights on it. I really like that. I've always been a fan of the XS sights, but they come out with the new model, the F8, which is my favorite of anything I've used. I also have the TLR6 light and laser on it, and I'll discuss that a little bit later. As well, why would you have a light or a laser on a concealed carry handgun? So why did I choose a Glock 26? Hey, the biggest reason probably that I have this as my concealed carry gun is on duty I carry a Glock 17, and that's my department issued 9mm handgun. That's my duty handgun. I also carry this as a backup handgun while I'm on duty. And the thing that I liked about it, the reason I have the Glock 26 is because it takes the exact same magazines. Now this is the magazine to my Glock 17 out of my duty vest, and it'll go right into the gun. Now obviously it sticks out a little bit further, but I don't care. Again, this is my backup gun. See, it's clear. It's a backup gun. I want it to be able to use the same magazines and ammunition that I'm already carrying on my person. So for me, a bit of a different choice as to the reason why I chose this gun than probably what most people are going to run into. Aside from that, it's a 9mm, which I really recommend not going to anything smaller than 9mm. In fact, 9mm is the caliber that typically that's the only thing I recommend. Glock 26, it comes with, so you have this regular size magazine that you can put in it that fits flush, and I can get most of my fingers on it, but it makes it very concealable. The great thing about it though is I can take a magazine for a Glock 19, which is the one slightly larger, with a kind of a grip filler there, and put it in. Still have a very concealable handgun, be able to carry 5 more rounds of ammunition in the magazine and get my full hand grip onto the grip. And that's, so anything that I recommend for a concealed carry handgun is something that is what I call modular, in that you can use different size magazines for either having more ammunition, more firepower, or to get a better grip. You want a short overall gun, but maybe you have a bigger hand and you need to be able to get a bigger grip on the gun. And definitely with this Glock 26, I can run a multitude of different sizes magazines in it to fit kind of what I want to do. Maybe what I'm wearing that day, or how concealable I want it to be. I can adjust the size of this gun, you know, at least the grip size with the magazine. And then, so everything that, you know, that I look at, that I recommend, I think that's a good thing to look at. So what should you really be looking at when it comes to you choosing a concealed carry handgun? First of all, I'm going to recommend a 9mm. Now, you can definitely go with a smaller caliber. I don't see any reason to go with a bigger one, the 40 Smith & Wesson or the 45 ACP. The 9mm with the right self-defense loads will have just as much stopping power as any of those calibers. The biggest thing that you want to find is a gun that fits your hand. Now, everybody's a little bit different. And so I think anybody that comes out and says, well, you should buy a Glock, or you should buy a Springfield, or you should buy a SIG, I think that's wrong, and I think that's bad advice, because first of all, you need to buy the gun that fits your hand the best. You need to buy the gun that you're not afraid of. And so going back to the 9mm, if a 9mm just has too much blast or too much recoil for what you're ready for, then don't buy a 9mm, because you're not going to carry it. If you're not comfortable with the gun, you will not carry it, and therefore you will not have it when you need it. And so I would rather see somebody carry a 22 rimfire than a Glock 26 if they're afraid of the Glock 26 and they're comfortable with the 22. Because it all comes down to how comfortable are you with it. Now, definitely you can train up, you know, start off with a smaller caliber, train up to a 9mm. There are some brands I am going to recommend, though, and in no particular order, but I really think that when it comes to choosing a gun, you should choose one of these. I'm going to recommend, obviously, Glock, Sig Sauer, Smith & Wesson, H&K, CZ, Carr, Springfield Armory, Walther. Those are all great guns, and they're going to give you the reliability that you want in something that you're trusting with your life. Now, there are a lot of great brands of handguns out there, and if I didn't mention yours, don't get, you know, your ego hurt or your feelings hurt. But of the guns that I mentioned, especially, I'm really gonna kind of zero in on Glock, Sig, Smith & Wesson. These guns are used by law enforcement, and they have been shown to be highly reliable in life or death situations. And that's exactly what you want. Now, sometimes there may be the temptation to say, well, you know, they're expensive, they're going to cost, you know, a Glock should cost me $500. I'm just going to get this other one for $250, and it'll be good enough. You can get a good gun for less than $500. It doesn't have to be a Glock or one of the ones I mentioned. But a lot of those brands, at some point, they will fail on you. They will break. There will be a problem with it. No problem, you send it back and get it fixed. It's just that this is the gun you depend on your life with. And so I'm going to stick with one of the brands that I mentioned, and I recommend that that's what you do as well. I don't like to see people, you know, betting their life on the cheapest gun out there. And so, like I said, there's a lot of great brands out there, but I would stick to one of the ones that I mentioned as a self-defense gun. Another thing to look at is, I'm going to show you another one which really has become one of my favorite concealed carry guns, and that's the Sig Sauer P365, and they've also just come out with a slightly larger version, the 365 XL. And everything that I recommend to people is what I refer to as a striker-fired handgun. Now, a striker-fired handgun means that every time you pull this trigger, the trigger pull will be the same every time. With other handguns, that's not necessarily the case. Leaving out revolvers, which I don't recommend revolvers as self-defense handguns. In semi-auto handguns, you have single action, which is typically your 1911. You have double action, single action, which has a hammer on the back and a decocking lever. They're great guns, but I don't recommend them for self-defense situations, especially for new shooters, people who are just coming into this. The reason why is because the trigger pull between the first shot and the second shot will be different. On a single action, double action handgun, you have a very long, the first trigger pull is very long because it has to cock that hammer back and then drop the hammer. All subsequent shots will be very short, and so you tend to have to pull very hard on the first shot and then just a tiny bit on all the other shots. For people that aren't very well trained with these, they can very easily miss both the first and second shot because the first one is so hard, and then the second one they overcompensate on because they're, again, they haven't trained enough with it. And so to me, why create a training issue when you don't have to? Just go with a striker fired handgun because the trigger pull is the same every time. And the other thing, and on this one it's funny because there is a manual safety. There's no reason to have a manual safety on your striker fired semi-auto handgun. It's a marketing gimmick that they have simply to make uneducated people feel better about their gun. You don't need it at all. There's typically on a striker fired handgun 3 internal safeties that prevent this gun from being fired inadvertently. And so if people say, oh, I don't want a Glock or I don't want a striker fired because they're not as safe, that's simply ignorance. That's somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about when it comes to firearms. So get a 9mm, get a striker fired. If you feel like you have to have a safety on the side of it, you can get it. You don't need it. I would never use it. But most of all, get the gun that you're comfortable with. Go to a range where you can rent guns and you can shoot them ahead of time, because you want an idea of how that gun is going to feel in your hand. Probably one of the biggest factors in how well you can shoot a handgun, how accurately you can shoot it, is your grip on that gun and your trigger pull on that gun. And those two things are very much kind of come from how well your hand fits on that gun. And so go, handle a lot of different guns and find the one that fits perfectly in your hand, or as near as perfect as possible, and then rent that gun and go and shoot it on the range. For me, a lot of the Sig Sauers fit my hand better than the Glock, and to just pick it up and naturally shoot it, I shoot it better. Now I've learned to shoot the Glock better because that's my duty gun, and so I spend a lot of training with that. But if that's not your issue, that you have to, and that's why I don't really carry a different style of gun. That's why I carry Glock off duty, because it's always the same. It fits my hand the same. That's what I'm used to shooting and training with. But something that you're just carrying for self-defense, that is, you're not switching between different guns. Find the one that fits your hand, that then you'll be most comfortable with. If you're comfortable with it, you will train with it. And the more you train with it, the more comfortable you will become, the more often you're going to carry it. And that's the whole thing that I want to see people doing, is I want to see people carrying their guns with them, because it doesn't, everyone talks about how, oh, we have this gun culture in America. Maybe we do, but why is it that somebody can walk into a Walmart in Texas and shoot people and there's nobody there to stop them except for the police? I mean, come on, there's all this talk and all this Second Amendment stuff, and everybody talks a lot about, guns and gun rights, but when it comes up to actually using them in self-defense, there's very few people out there even carrying their gun with them. And so we need to change that, and if you want to make our country a safer place, then more of us need to be trained and equipped with our guns out there every day, to make that happen. Otherwise, we're just going to keep having these mass shootings. We're going to keep having the violence that we see on our streets, because the only people out there that are carrying weapons are the police. And you and I need to make it, be that person out there who is trained and who is equipped to make a difference when confronted with a violent person. And so it all goes back to finding the gun that you are comfortable with, the one that fits you, the one that you feel that you can conceal and that you can shoot well. And then you will train with it, and when you train with it, you'll carry it. And so, just in closing, again, I recommend a 9mm, Glock, Sig Sauer, Smith & Wesson, H&K, CZ, I think I forgot to mention that one before. CZ makes some really good guns. Carr, Springfield Armory, Walther, any of those are going to be great brands. And for a concealed carry gun, I don't know why would you pick anything different than that. Feel free to comment if you've picked something different than that. That's fine. And it comes down to you picking the one that is best for you and your needs. I just think that these brands offer the durability for a lifetime of use and are going to hold up to the amount of shooting you need to do to become trained and proficient with it and not break down on you. Buy one of those guns, buy it in 9mm, as long as you can shoot 9mm, really good, or you can train with that and be good. If not, go to a smaller caliber and work your way up to a 9mm. Then buy a striker-fired handgun. Don't worry about a safety. You don't need a manual safety on it. But if it makes you feel better, go ahead and get it. Just learn not to use it. So anyway, I hope that this has given you something to think about. And my biggest hope is that you will, number one, have a gun, that you'll train with it, and you will carry it out there and help me and the other police officers in this country protect our communities, our streets from violence. And just in closing, remember that even though we've been talking about guns and hardware today, it's not what you hold in your hand that saves you, it's what's in your head and in your heart. So this is Nomad signing out.